we're going to get to your item, Todd. D1, report on volunteer efforts in West Contra Costa.
Yes, and tonight Mr. Trujillo is here, and I'm going to let Mr. Greer introduce the report that Mr. Trujillo is about to give.
Board President, board members, and Dr. Harder, I do want to recognize I want to recognize the work that Mr. Trujillo has provided to us in leadership in revising our volunteer efforts to better meet the needs of our community. So I personally want to thank him for the work that he's done, because sometimes I worry him.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. President and board members. This is a quick update. Hopefully you'll like what we have to share with you today. So we heard from you, the board, and from the community that the process was complicated and longer. It was done with the spirit of ensuring student safety, but we knew we could always improve, and we've been working at making the process better and better. And of course, the biggest barrier was cost. So this is what we've done. As you know, the process included before you go online, complete an application. You would then have to get a TB test, which costs money, and you would then have to be fingerprinted, which also incurred funding. The board modified the policy in December 11, waiving the TB test, so that's no longer a step that's required. Now, all parents, when they go online, they complete an online application, and they complete a health questionnaire that identifies those who might be at high risk of TB, which will then be deferred to Contra Costa County Health Services for follow-up. But it does not stop the process for that parent to become a volunteer. The next barrier was then, how do we reduce the cost for fingerprinting? So we worked with our vendors, Be a Mentor and A1, our fingerprinting, and looked at a different way of doing booking, which was one of the issues why the cost was so high for fingerprinting. And we've came up with a new process, which is online booking. We've already started doing this. On Tuesday, we had 20 people who showed up. They booked their appointments during the Christmas break. No one talked to them. They all showed up. Because this happened, now the process includes apply online. No longer do we have to do TB testing. And starting this week, given that the reduction of costs because of the online booking, we're able to now subsidize the cost for fingerprinting for all volunteers. Okay, so that's the update. We will continue to leverage our volunteers and see how we can leverage all the information and resources that our volunteers bring to our school district. As you know, the website that we use and our great partner, Be a Mentor, we are able to collect lots of information about our volunteers. But the biggest news now is that fingerprinting is available for all parents, and it's accessible and it's free. And there's no longer TB requirement. Thank you for your time.
All right, good job. Do we have any public comment?
There is none.
Will you take it?
Okay. Hopefully I didn't tear my suit.
Ms. Merriweather has a question.
I know, go ahead, Ms. Merriweather.
Okay. Do parents have access at the schools if they don't have access to a computer to apply online?
Yes. So the last slide I kind of skipped on that is I flashed the pictures of our community workers. So we will be reminding every school site that for those that have a community worker, our expectation, and they've been mandated to follow up with any parent who doesn't have a computer to provide access. Of course, if the parent doesn't want to go to the school site, they can either do it on their smartphone now, or we will mail the application to them. And there's always going to be someone like that. But the biggest barrier was that the process did not appear to be immediate for a person. They wanted to do everything at once and just be done with it. Now, technically, we could have a Saturday fingerprint party, have people show up, complete the online application in a computer lab, get in line to be fingerprinted, and 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, they get their badge. So it'll be very fast. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gross.
I just want to say, wonderful work. This is outstanding revision of a process that I think we were doing great work before, but this is exceptional customer service. It's process improvement. It's everything we want to see throughout the system. I'm just tickled pink at this outcome. I do have a question about how are we going to communicate to parents who might be worried about their documentation status that this is a clear, that this process is safe to use and allows them to get into access to their
It's a good question. So the misconception is that parents who are undocumented, that when they get fingerprinted, somehow this information is connected to immigration. It is not. Absolutely it is not. We have fingerprinted thousands of parents already. I would estimate about 1,000 of them or more have been undocumented. Nothing has happened. We let parents know this. What seems to work the best is when I personally go to a parent group and talk to them, or when a principal lets them know. So every school knows, especially those with high populations of families that might be undocumented, that I'm available to go and talk. And our community workers have the message as well. Whenever they feel that I need to go and say the same thing again, for whatever reason, it works better when I say it sometimes, so if that needs to happen, I go and do that. But I want to make it very clear to everyone that everyone can become a volunteer without fear. Okay?
Sensational. Thank you for everyone for all this work. This is a great outcome.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Enos.
Mr. Enos.
Mr. Trillo, very quickly, I'm assuming that after we go through this first round of signing folks up, we'll go ahead and take a look at it and refine what we're doing, and I think that's something that, knowing the way you do your work is very thorough, so I'm appreciating the fact that we'll be able to make those improvements and get even more parents involved. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, part of the process here is that we're always looking at how we can make this faster and better and still maintain the safety of our students, which is our #1 priority, but how can we make this more accessible to families? So I think the next frontier for the volunteer process is really how to leverage all of the resources. Both, we have a lot of parents who work in big entities, big organizations. We have that information. Maybe we have 300 people who work at Costco. What does that mean? How many work at Chevron? How could we leverage that information? How could schools benefit from that? We have that information now on the computer because parents have to complete that when they apply for the volunteer application process. So that's going to be the next thing. I feel like we set the road now. Now we got to start looking at how to leverage these resources. So more information to come. Yeah.
One more question.
Hold on. Let me run the meeting, please. Ms. Board Member Cronenberg, and then we'll go ahead. First, want to get a first go around, then you can come back. Ms. Cronenberg.
I have a follow-up question to the consequences of fingerprinting. So what I heard you say was sort of anecdotal, that in fact nothing bad has ever happened. But do we actually understand what that process is for a fact? I mean, do we know what happens with the fingerprinting process?
Yes, we would not have proceeded without fully understanding. We talked a lot about it for a long time. For many years, we were under a different understanding. We spent a lot of time researching it. I didn't believe it at first. I mean, I'm the one who created a different system beforehand. The way that fingerprints work with the Department of Justice, they look up your name, they understand someone wants to look at your prints, they make a copy of it electronically, and they send it to the person who requested it, who has the authority to view it. They make no connections. The only thing I would clarify is if the individual has a warrant, whether undocumented or not, that may activate any type of search. And we definitely do not allow anyone with a current warrant to volunteer in our system.
Right. So that's the point of doing the search. And do we state anywhere on our website exactly those facts, that this is what a background check is and this is what you can expect?
Right. So we have found that the best way to communicate this is face-to-face because of all the nuance. For example, if someone has been deported, an undocumented person, that is can be considered, depending on where you were deported, a felony. But in our eyes, for the purpose of volunteering, it's not. So it's important to explain to people, if you were deported because of a serious crime, say for drugs or something, and you were removed from the country, and then you decided to come back, and you've chosen to volunteer and get your that's a person that really needs some counseling and coaching on how to, support the schools and maintain their safety. But if someone like that were to come through our system, there would be a mechanism that would be activated, not by us, but because there's a warrant for
So
them.
that's the real question. So a deportation would activate the system for whatever reason.
Someone with a warrant would activate a system for anyone. And if that person happens to be undocumented, it may lead to deportation. That's as far as we understand.
Okay.
Yeah. But that, anecdotally, because I think we would have heard it and you would have heard it, any of that had happened, has not happened.
Right, but that's the anecdotal step. The understanding the process is, I want to understand what creates the anecdote.
Yeah.
And I
A good
think,
question.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Gross?
What is our total volunteer count right now?
Good question. So right now, and it's January, right? So we have 2,100 volunteers for this year. So add that to the 4,200, I might be misquoting myself, from last year. So we have a lot of people in West Contra Costa Unified who volunteer and who want to volunteer. So again, the next step will be, how do we use this big data, leverage all these resources beyond helping with field trips and whatever they do in the classroom. Is there another way to leverage all this untapped resource in a smart way? And we think with the database that we have online, that we're going to begin to explore those ways of doing that. But we couldn't do it until people felt safe through the process and we're not overwhelmed by the system itself, even though all parents understood that this was for the intent of ensuring student safety.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Steve?